Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Well, I at least got one album bomb prediction right, I'll take it. I mean, it's a shame that the album bomb came from the worst album, as for some ungodly reason, Jessie Ware didn't even get a single debut or even a return this week with That Feels Good. Which is a shame because I'll absolutely take it over the self-titled album bomb by ILLENIUM, Joy. I mean, all but one of the debuts were by him, which even if I'm not huge on the album, that did outperform expectations. I thought it would be a flop album for him, but really, given the fact that a lot of the debuts from last week were much higher on average, this meant that the week didn't really feel as busy as I expected, and given that the album isn't really performing all that well on streaming, I don't expect a whole lot of it to last around that much longer. Whatever. Where ILLENIUM didn't impact, of course, was the top 10, where I'm Good Blue by David Guetta and BB Rexa is stranded like #1, but with all channels rotating out slowly, this song is more vulnerable to be knocked down than ever every single week. Interestingly, we saw a slight revival for B's Rap Music Sessions Volume 53 by B's Rap and Shakira at #2, as the streaming seems to be actually holding steady, and it actually somehow managed to return to the Hot 100. I mean, I don't expect it to last, but hey, it's a welcome revival, I'll definitely take it. Hell, what surprised me was Trustful by Pink at #3, which didn't come back with it to the Hot 100, surprisingly, even despite absolutely surging in airplay. I mean, I guess the streaming isn't strong enough to really get it there. Real shame there, I would like to see that happen. Now, this is the interesting part. Skipping over Hold Me Closer by Elton John and Britney Spears at #4, which is just falling slowly in all categories but not fast enough. We saw a gain for Baby Don't Hurt Me by David Guetta and Marie and Coi Leray up to #5, which finally hit the bubbling under and has a lot of radio support behind it, even if the streaming isn't really matching it. God, I'm so concerned that this is going to get higher. I hope the American public knew from I'm Good that we don't need this formula repeated twice, just saying. What this big jump did do was knock down 1035 by Tiesto featuring Tate McRae to #6, but really with its album bomb losses and its continued collapse on radio, I'm not really that surprised there. Nor am I surprised that El Merengue by Marshmello Manuel Turizo hit #7, as it's really only relying on streaming with decent radio but nothing to really help it at this rate. Next is Miracle by Calvin Harris and Ellie Goulding at #8, which has its own airplay boost with some decent streaming, but really just doesn't have a whole lot outside the dance genre to really get there. On the opposite end, we have our big debut at #9, which also debuted on the Hot Rock charts, Eyes Wide Shut by ILLENIUM, Avril Lavigne and Travis Barker at #9, which really, I'm not surprised this is here. Avril Lavigne's star power means that this was going to have a high debut, and given the sound of the song, I'll definitely say it's not surprising at all, but also kind of hilarious. We'll get to it later. Finally, Narcissistic Personality Disorder by AAoD manages to hold steady at #10, but that's really only because River absolutely collapsed out the top 10, and it has some decent streaming, even if AAoD himself actually has a song with more streaming that somehow didn't even debut this week. Yeah, kind of surprising there. But now the big story this week, Outfalls and Falloffs, where the latter were mostly lower songs that were honestly pretty damn bad. I mean, yes, I'm not happy that Food for the Soul by It's Murph, and especially The Hard Way by PNAU and Khalid managed to collapse. Both songs are on the borderline of the year-end list and might actually miss it. But if it's taking out Ghost and $1 Million Baby by Ava Max, Next to You by La Luxury Dubs and Kane Brown, Rapture by Interworld, and especially Worth Nothing by Twisted featuring Oliver Tree, finally exiting after 26 weeks, yeah, I'm not complaining at all. Those songs are mostly mediocre at best. Our fours are also very busy, shocker, but it's also worth noting how many of them there are. The album just knocked so many continued losers down, honestly not surprising given the high debuts that knocked them down initially last week. I mean, there's some obvious cases like All Nighter by Tiesto off the album bomb to 36, and off the debut Beggin' by Chris Lake and Aluna only fell 6 spots to 23, really promising there, as well as Up and Down by the Chainsmokers and 347 at 24, and Be My Lover 2023 mixed by Hyperton, David Guetta and La Bouche at #39. Surprised that last one actually managed to stick around. I thought it would have been an easy 1-week song at this rate. Hell, we could group a bunch of funk losses with Giga Chad Theme by jxdn at 33, Warning by MC Austin at 41, Crystals by Isolate.exe at 46, and Shadow by Onimaru and Smithmain at 47. Or even Skrillex taking small losses with Rumble with Fred Again and Flow Down at 29, and Ratata with Missy Elliott and Mr. Wazo at 31. Honestly, I'm surprised that latter one stuck around as long as it has. The rest though, Sheesh. All I Want Is You by Reb6 featuring Hoshi Star at 50. Money on the Dash with Ellie Duhay and Weapon at 48. Maybe You're the Problem by Ava Max at 40. Honestly, I'm surprised that this is the Ava Max song that's sticking around. Kinda interesting there. Clouds by Bunter Nate Traveller at 38. Rhyme Dust by MK and Dom Dollar at 32. Ghost Again by Depeche Mode looks like it's on its way out at 30, even if the airplay collapses meant that this was actually not that surprising at all. And Beast Rap Music Station's Volume 54 by Busy Rap and Kunhela at 25, which is losing way faster than I expected. I honestly thought that song would do a lot better. But the one song I really want to highlight is Upside Down by Medusa featuring Poppy Bascom at 49, which yes, it did fall again, but the fact that it absolutely nosedived last week and is somehow able to stick around this week, it's honestly a promising sign that it might stick around long term, which hey, I'm not complaining, it's a great song. But most likely what won't stick around long term and have a chance is our two returns this week, both by ILLENIUM off the self-titled album's Impact. I mean, I'm not exactly complaining that Love Me a Little with Nina Nesbitt returned to 34, but unfortunately it brought along the dead carcass of Insanity with American Teeth at 37. I gotta hope that latter one is the one that absolutely collapses. It's easily the worst track on the album for me. But of course, ILLENIUM also translated to our jumps, as With All My Heart with Jake actually jumped up to 27. Still, not as high as I expected. I thought that song would be a lot bigger. Outside of that, we actually had another game besides ILLENIUM this week. Praising You by Rita Ora featuring Fatboy Slim up to 19, as it's actually seeming to get some pop airplay for once. I mean, if this gives Fatboy Slim his first year in list spot, I'm definitely not complaining, especially with the song being really damn good and kind of overhated. You guys are really harsh on it. But yeah, 11 debuts, 10 from ILLENIUM. Pardon me if I keep these reasoning short, as I do plan on doing a video with this with a colleague of mine. So let's get started with number 45, Drwn by ILLENIUM. Okay, so the one thing that holds this album back is its lack of variety. Many of the songs have a very similar structure to them that does feel very pop friendly and does get very annoying as the album goes on. Thankfully, this one is more of an exception to that, being a solid down-tempo interlude that bases itself around the sample of Bring Me the Horizon's Drwn, a genuinely great song from their 2015 album that I've honestly returned to a lot more than I expected. Kinda hilarious in this case too, given that this is the second song that's charting right now that's sampling Bring Me the Horizon, and even if I don't like this as much as Giga Chad theme and the weird way the snares are produced and the kind of flat sounding drops, it does have a really nice atmosphere to it. It definitely is a welcome change of pace on the album. I'll definitely take it. It's a solid interlude. Number 44, I Want You to Stay by ILLENIUM. This is literally the exact same concept again, this time with Rihanna Stay, which ironically was also on a charting song by Plume that was honestly a lot better than this again. But I do admit that this sounds really damn good, especially with how the sample is made to sound more emotional, and even if the drops do feel a bit muffled and lacking in the power that they should have, those explosive synths do sound really nice, kind of remind me of the Ashes era, which is definitely welcome for me. It's a solid song, but not one of the highlights on the album for me. It's just really damn good, and that's it. Number 36, Live Without Love by Shouse and David Guetta.
Search around to find yourself. Say, I don't wanna live without love. I don't wanna live without love.
I shouldn't be remotely surprised that this team up happened. I mean, David Guetta is really the reason that Shouse has a career in the mainstream at all, given that his remix of Love Tonight absolutely blew up in 2020. So I was curious what a new original song between the two would sound like, and holy shit, this is excellent. I'm genuinely shocked how good this is. This is probably one of his best songs to date. I mean, like I said last week, when David Guetta escapes the pop sellout mode and goes for something a little bit more authentic to him, such as techno or in this case progressive house, which is genuinely something I never expected from him, he honestly impresses me a lot more than his pop songs do. And this is one of his best mixes yet. This progressive house sounds absolutely gorgeous, as those synths remind me a lot of Deadmau5 and how they just float around in a really nice mix, against the choral vocals of Shouse that sound absolutely fantastic, and their production touches that give this a lot more emotion and atmosphere to it. I was honestly shocked that he pulled this off, given that his remix of Love Tonight did feel more towards techno, and this sort of progressive house stuff is something that I haven't seen him explore in a long time. But with how big sounding this is and how smooth the percussion builds into some fantastic drops, I honestly wish he did more of this. It's fucking great. This is fantastic. I'm genuinely surprised that David Guetta is behind this. Really damn good stuff. I'm really impressed. Number 28, Starfall by ILLENIUM. And on the topic of surprises, Jesus, this might be the best song that ILLENIUM has made since Prey. I was absolutely floored by it. It's a 4-minute epic that absolutely reminds me of 85's Dishonourable era and just how epic sounding it is. This is one of his most spacious and big mixes I've ever seen. Building some impressive atmosphere with those absolutely gorgeous synths against the orchestral strings, pianos and auto-tuned vocoder vocals from Annika Wells that really add to the atmosphere quite a bit. Combine that with some of the hardest hitting drops on the album and some genuine emotion that I wish the rest of the album followed up on. Yeah, this is an absolutely excellent opener, and the fact that the album didn't live up to this expectation kind of has me really annoyed because yeah, this is fucking excellent. Check it out. Number 26, You Are Right by ILLENIUM, Wooli and Grabbitz.
But I don't think I'll get through another night.
Unfortunately though, you've got cases like this song which I was absolutely dreading given that I'm not a Wooli fan at all and his recent material has been devoid of any sort of personality or anything surprising to talk about. I will give him this though, this at least doesn't feature a really forced heavy drop like the majority of Wooli collabs have, but man, this production is just not remotely good at all. I mean, I will give it that Grabbitz sounds at least a little bit interested in the song. It's not a bad vocal performance, but he's stuck with this really flat sounding mix where the drops just sound terribly dated and really don't work as well for ILLENIUM style as they should be. The mix sounds really flat as the pianos sound muffled and the drops just don't match with anything else here. Really, it's a complete mess to me. And the fact that this was teased all the way back to January, honestly, no, this is not remotely good. I'd skip it. Number 21, Other Side by ILLENIUM, Said the Sky and Vera Blue.
I got a battle here to fight. Don't know if I'll ever see the light, but won't you stay?
This song frustrates me so much because it was so close to being legitimately great. Vera Blue sounds absolutely fantastic on the verses, especially with some really nice spacious production around her. Kind of reminds me of the Awake era of ILLENIUM in the way that the pianos and guitars sound on the mix, but then that drop comes in and I'm sorry, this thing is horrible. It goes for a future trap approach that tries to replicate Skrillex's Face by Fears or Good's face, and given that the drops on those songs actually fit in with what they were surrounded by, this just feels so jarring in comparison. It sounds really flat, the lead is obnoxiously loud, and again, it doesn't match with the melodic verses at all. It kind of ruins the atmosphere entirely for me. So yeah, not a bad song, I get the appeal of this, and I do like the verses enough to say it's decent, but it should be way better. What a shame. Number 20, Lifeline by ILLENIUM and jxdn. Okay, enough with this. I get why ILLENIUM is trying for this sort of approach, it's more authentic to his roots, but why would you have to work with jxdn, one of the worst emo pop singers of our generation right now who hasn't made a single song I've liked, and shocker, this doesn't work too, for exactly the same reasons as I expected. I mean, it's got an okay vocal line, but jxdn's whiny ass vocals just really do not work on this sort of production, especially when you have such a flat sounding mix where you can barely tell the hook apart from everything else. A common problem across this album, I will add. I mean, at least the atmosphere is decent, the vocal melodies are fine, but otherwise this was a complete turd for me. One of the worst on the album, I'd skip it. Number 17, Back to You by ILLENIUM and All Time Low. Okay, yikes, this is a complete chore to get through. In fact, this might be one of the ones that's really cooled on me over time. I mean, I could point out that we don't need to give All Time Low any more attention given the allegations, but this song would still be mediocre even without them on it. The lead singer just sounds completely uninterested here, and once again, the production barely distinguishes itself apart from anything else on the album, especially for a hook that really is forgettable as all hell, even despite there being a halfway decent atmosphere at the core of all this. I mean, that was the one thing I was dreading about talking about this album on, because songs like this are so fucking generic and really devoid of anything interesting to note that they make them really hard to talk about to begin with. So yeah, I'd skip this too. Not good. Number 15, Nothing Ever After by ILLENIUM and Motionless in White. Creatively though, the album has some gems like this. Chris Corelli sounds very invested on this whole song, with his shouting and growling sound incredible as all hell across the whole song, and really matching with the heavier dystopic atmosphere here, with one of the hardest production choices on the entire album. I mean, the heavier metal elements combined with the crunchy guitar line and some fantastic drops that really match the atmosphere quite well. It's just an absolute banger all the way through, and yeah, you can give credit to both artists for it being really good. It's not just carried by Motionless in white this time. So yeah, genuinely great song, one of the highlights on the album for me. I'd absolutely recommend it. And finally, number 9, Eyes Wide Shut by ILLENIUM, Avril, Lavigne, and Travis Barker. The highest of the ILLENIUM debuts this week, and the fact that this was actually counted for the dance charts was stupid and ridiculous. I mean, putting aside the small handful of sims that appear in the second half of the chorus, which are electronic enough, I guess, this song isn't really an ILLENIUM song at all. It's just a pop-punk song by Avril Lavigne and Travis Barker, with ILLENIUM Sims and his spacious atmosphere really being the only thing that he contributes here, or at least it feels like it. Still, this is a great song regardless. I was genuinely impressed by it. Avril Lavigne sounds fantastic here as her vocal production really makes her stand out in the mix, and she sounds way more invested here than she did in most songs on her last album. And combine that with Travis Barker's fantastic drumming, a really bombastic hook that really stood out to me, and some of the nicest sounding pop-punk production you'll hear in the genre. Yeah, I'm not really complaining that this is the biggest debut. It may not be electronic whatsoever, but still, as a song on its own, it's genuinely great. Another one of the highlights for me. And you know what? All things considered, the album cuts from ILLENIUM's self-titled album were amongst the most tolerable on the album on average. So I'll be nice to give 2 honourable runner-ups, one to Eyes Wide Shut by ILLENIUM, Avril Lavigne and Travis Barker, combined with Live Without Love by Shouse and David Guetta. Yeah, I'm shocked he's getting an honourable mention. That's really surprising for me. I mean, the best is easily going to Starfall by ILLENIUM. Real shame that the album didn't live up to that song, and I honestly wish that ILLENIUM does more of it in the future. It's genuinely one of his best songs to date. The worst though, unfortunately, is also going to ILLENIUM's, unsurprisingly, with Lifeline with jxdn easily getting the worst, followed by Back to You with All Time Low as the dishonourable runner-up. Although that Wooli and Grabbitz song You Are Right was really damn close to it, it could swap with it any other time. Next week, the aftermath of this, and given how weak the album is doing on streaming, I expect a lot of these to really collapse in the next coming weeks. So yeah, look forward to the aftermath of that. But yeah, that's all for this episode of Analysis of Dance. See you next time.